Hi, I'm Julie Johnson of Heart Alchemy Intuitive Guidance and Healing. I'm a mental health counselor and I also do Akashic readings, energy healing, and spiritual coaching and guidance.
And I am Mystic Michelle from Mystic Wisdom Healing. I'm an intuitive mystic. I am a Reiki master. I am an intuitive tarot reader, herbalist, and teacher. So today on Reader to Reader, I'm very excited to get to ask Julie questions about their spiritual journey and where they came from. And oh my gosh, it's mind blowing. Like I am so excited for you guys to get to know this beautiful being and the journey that they went on. And I love how different it is from my story.
Awesome.
So let's do it.
Yeah. I think how to sum that up.
So you got to use your degree, go to Congo, and actually use this degree to help civilians repair from. I don't know. I know that stuff happened, but I'm not that versed in everything that went out.
No, not very many people are.
And so what was your takeaway from that situation? Or from that situation, but from that experience that you had.
Thanks for asking in that way, because when I think about the spiritual perspectives, I'm thinking about like, oh, the religion of it all, but really it's everything. It's all the experiences.
Yeah.
That was another really beautiful experience of following my internal compass and taking a leap into the unknown, which was really scary because I heard terrible things about Congo.
I think we all have.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Congo is an amazing, diverse, beautiful country, and it is war-torn for sure in many areas, and it has a very traumatic history.
And I've met some very beautiful people from Congo who, like, I still think about almost on a daily basis.
I'm so glad to hear that, because places like that, I mean, when it's like the people who can come out of that with their heart intact are like the best people, right?
Yeah.
And yes, there's lots of brokenness and wounding and terrible things that have happened there, that are still happening there. But there are also people there who are just so incredibly strong, so hopeful, so faith-filled, really, in what can be and how they can better their communities and their families and themselves. And so it's a very enriching experience for me, and challenging, and I cried a lot, and also had a blast in so many ways. And definitely like, you got to face the questions of, what's a classic question, like, why do terrible things happen to good people, right? Like, that's, it's such a basic question, and in so many, I could answer that in so many different ways, right? But it's pretty confronting to witness the destruction of beauty and innocence for no one's real gain, if that makes sense.
No, it does. My brain went to, well, that happens here too.
Absolutely.
It's just not done in the same, devastate, like the same explosion. Like, it's not done through explosions. It's done through many different ways.
All over the world.
All over the world.
I think everyone has an experience of that, of something beautiful or innocent being destroyed. For what?
For what? For what? Someone's opinion, someone's ego.
Yeah, right? Someone's belief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
politics, like what is.
Politics or someone's own tortured soul coming out and lashing out at somebody
Yeah.
else, right? Like, um, yeah. So we can see that everywhere. And there are some places, some, whether it's Congo or here or anywhere, there are some places, scenarios, circumstances where it's blatant. And other time, like I think a lot of times in this country, it's subtle
Hmm.
or hidden.
Or we're just so conditioned
We're
to
so
it
conditioned.
being the way.
Yes, absolutely,
We don't
absolutely.
look at it. Whereas, like, when
Yeah,
you're in a war torn country,
it's
it's
just
in
in
your
your face.
face.
Yeah, it's so obvious.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so it was an experience of the obvious and the ridiculous in terms of, like, I say ridiculous meaning like ridiculous levels of it. Ridiculous in the sense of like nonsensical to me.
Yeah.
It was hard to wrap my brain around what was going on. Also, yeah, a lot of joy there, a lot of wonderful experiences, a lot of connecting beautifully with people, whether they were local Congolese people or whether they were part of that international community that was also there as part of the humanitarian aid response. That's a whole complicated thing. I won't get into that. I have a lot of opinions about um, international humanitarian aid and development and all of that. There's so much good that happens, and it's very imperfect, and there's lots of weird stuff going on. So it's like very imperfect, and I won't get into that. But
There's
just
two
wanted
sides
to.
to everything.
There's like 84 sides to everything.
And then there's the extremists on both sides of that.
Yes,
And then you got everybody else in the middle, just like we were saying.
Absolutely. The same is true in the international aid world. So, and I'm so thankful for the wonderful experiences I've had there. But it was in Congo that I had messed around with meditation before.
Okay.
I'd been like, what is this? And really, like I played around with it. I was like into yoga, I like got it, or I thought I did. Um, can you ever get yoga? I mean, like complicated, but the really cool thing was that one of my friends there, um, is she's a meditation teacher of a specific style of meditation, a tradition. And she actually brought a friend to Congo and hosted like a mini retreat for us.
Okay.
And so I got to do a weekend of learning this specific type of style of meditation. And I ended up, there's so much to the story, but keeping it succinct, I ended up practicing that style of meditation and then committing to going to a well to this meditation retreat center in Spain that was part of this meditation lineage, for a month. So I left Congo in May of 2016, end of May. Um, Went back to London for a very quick turnaround before I went to Spain for a month to meditate. The reason that all that happened, like the reason, like I basically, I think it must have been in December, January of that year prior to that, where I was like, God, dear God, it's me, Julie. Like,
I think
I
that's when
need
that book came out.
possibly. And I was like, I need internal help. I'm not okay. There was a lot of things that happened that I was exposed to in Congo, culturally, just circumstance wise, in my work, personally, different things happening. I was really burnt out. I yeah, I think now I can look back and I even, I've talked to friends about that, and they can see I was very unwell. And I'm a super positive and healthy person who was depressed and who was burnt out. and
check on your strong friends.
Check on your strong friends. I'd love to hear more about that from you soon, because I know you have a lot to share about that. But yeah, as a strong person who's healthy and can super adaptable, and I can kind of roll with the punches until I can't. And we all have our breaking points. And I was just a very adaptable, positive person who was at my breaking point, or a breaking point. I think we can have lots of different levels of that.
Yes.
And
but this was like a pivotal breaking point.
It's pivotal.
This
pivotal.
was it's pivotal.
It was pivotal.
Pivotal. That now pivotal. I can't do it. I didn't do it to begin with. I can't do it. But so this was a huge turning point in your spiritual journey, where you're asking, what do I do now? I need help.
And it was like a week later that Susanna, beautiful Susanna, Swedish meditation teacher, she and I reconnected because we hadn't spoken in a while. We were in the same town in Congo, but we just hadn't connected. We ran into each other just walking on the road. We were like, you. And we both, and she was just like, I'm going to host a meditation retreat soon. She had been planning on hosting it a couple months before, and I hadn't been able to attend. She had to move it because her friend couldn't come to join her, or whatever. Held it that January. And I was like, I'm in. And I was like, God, is that like, is that wink? Is that God wink coming down? I was like, this is definitely going to be useful. And so having that experience with her, she is a glowing orb of love and peace and light energy. What a blessing on this planet she is. And she blessed me so much through her friendship and through her teaching, and just guidance to me, and encouraging me to follow through on going to this meditation retreat. So this was, I knew that I needed help. I needed recovery after leaving Congo, and this was how I was going to do it. This was my support plan for myself. And I had so many people, my Christian friends and family, being like, is that a cult? And I was like, I don't know. I thought I'll find out.
Sure feels good right now.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. Susanna's pretty cool. Like, if I turn out like her and it's a cult, like, big whoop. Like, she's wonderful. So I was like, I don't know. And I had some Christian friends ask me, like, well, isn't meditation clearing out your mind? Like, couldn't evil come in? Stuff like that. Oh. It's just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding.
I've never had that thought process. That's interesting. It is. Yeah.
It is. And I was like, I don't think that's how it works, bro. But but I get where they're coming from, because it's so often in Christianity, like it sounds like you experience in Mormonism, anything outside of that structure is viewed with skepticism, fear. It's probably demonic, certainly witchcraft, possibly. I should say possibly, because there's so much. There can be in any of our religions this fear of anything that's spiritual, that's outside of what we know. And I encountered that too. I was so into this meditation. That doesn't mean I didn't have my own fears and resistance, especially when I got to this meditation retreat. So I was there it was wonderful, freaking wonderful people. And it was a bit confronting for some of my, yes, I was so expansive in my faith in so many ways, but I still was like a little squirrely around some things that I wasn't sure how to address in my Christian faith. I still wasn't sure about the whole hell thing. I was like, but it might be real. I don't know. And then I, believed Christ as Savior and all these things. Not to the exclusion of others, but for me, I was like, I think I need to stick with this Christ thing. This Christ thing. I'll expand on that later, but so it was a bit confronting at times, being in this meditation environment where different traditions and beliefs were being brought up. Jesus was talked of as one of the great masters.
Yes, that's what I love about that.
It's so cool. Now I'm like, heck yes. Then I was
Yeah.
like, also the savior. Okay, like sure master, but I was like, but I don't want to think of Jesus as just like one of the many masters. Like that's very uncomfortable for me
Yeah.
as a Christian. Even though I was a very expanded Christian in so many ways, I was like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know.
He's
There
a
was
God.
fear.
He's not equal
Yeah.
to these
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
people that have walked this planet.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I
now
get that.
I'm like super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super. I freaking love Jesus. I love Christ. I love the like Christ consciousness concept and all that. There's so many things we can get into about that, but um yeah, I just remember, it's a lot for the ego to just like go and meditate for like multiple hours a day every day for like a month in the mountains. It's a lot of resistance comes up.
That sounds beautiful. I'm just
It was
like,
oh,
oh, I can do that.
it was beautiful. Yes, you can. It was beautiful, and you naturally have resistance. I naturally had resistances, and I remember texting my parents or something like that and saying like I don't know, I've been here 2 weeks, I feel so confined, like I just want to be free and whatever, like I don't know, like all this resistance, and also like I don't know what this means for me spiritually. My dad, let's just give some props to my dad for a second.
Okay.
He's like, my dad responded, he was like, you need to stick this out, like you have all, what did he say, you have all the signposts you need to stay true to your spirituality and your faith. Stick it out. I know. My parents agree.
Seriously, like, can I move in?
Yeah. That's what a lot of my friends are like. I'm like, they're a very welcoming household.
Yeah.
They've got spare bedrooms. Yeah, they're great. So that was exactly what I needed to hear, and I stuck with it, and it was transformative and beautiful and so expansive.
And what you needed in that moment
It
of
was
like,
the healing I needed.
yeah,
Absolutely. I can't imagine. I don't know what else could have possibly healed me the way that a month of meditation did
in Spain,
in Spain, in the mountains,
in the mountains of
with
Spain.
wonderful people all there with that
Yeah.
same intention of healing and connecting with themselves and being present and just being in love with life.
And even though they weren't necessarily looking and viewing Christ in the same way that you were in that time period,
Mm-hmm.
but still being authentic to that part of you who very much was involved in his way.
Yes.
And so to have that on top of everything else they were
Mm-hmm.
doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the love and support and beauty of like divine presence there really was absolutely healing.
Well, I love this story because this just kind of goes to prove like when you get out of your own way and actually just ask for the help, it's kind of like, when you ask for the teacher, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Absolutely.
And part of that is like realizing that you need the help from the
Yeah.
first place.
It's so funny. I never thought of that quote in terms of that moment where I literally said, God, I need help. I need internal help. And then Susanna, my meditation teacher, was like, hey.
As soon as you said it, I'm like, asking you shall receive. The student is ready.
Beautiful. It
Yeah.
was beautiful. And then I got to have this amazing immersive experience.
Yeah.
And I came out of that. I was my own little glowing orb. I was like, I felt amazing.
Just imagine you dancing down the mountain.
Yes, I'm a dancer at heart. So yes, I danced all over that mountain. And it was just the people I met there and the healing was amazing. And so something also that was really important for me was I left Congo without a job lined up. And in that line of work, jobs are like in short-term contracts from anywhere from 3 months to 2 years often. And but people usually will go and say, okay, I'm done with this country. Like I'm applying to my next post, basically, my next contract in my next country, whether it's with the same organization or not. I intentionally left Congo. I had some savings and I intentionally left with no plan, basically. My plan was actually this was my plan. Healing, connecting with my own identity that wasn't Julie Humanitarian in Congo, because that was a really satisfying identity for me. It was fulfilling a dream, and it was a badass identity.
Yeah.
Right? Like, sounds cool, right?
It's a great resume.
Super, so great. Super great. And I was recognizing, I was like, I need to make sure I know who I am and make sure I connect with this identity that has nothing to do with my job title. So I just knew I needed some space. So,
well, there's that intuition coming into play again, because had you lined up another job and not decided to put the intention out there that you were going to do healing, that not only you were taking this time off, but specifically to do healing and find yourself, the teacher's like, well, hello, where I am.
The teacher's like, I've arrived.
I've arrived.
Here. I am your whole life.
Yeah.
The teacher's all around you all the time.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that all this is a practice of what's my internal compass saying, what's my intuition saying, what is that, like, how do I know when it's time to move and when it's time to pause and where to move? And it's so subtle. But when it's big decisions like these, it comes quite clear to me. Little decisions, I can be indecisive as all get out. But big decisions, I'm like, nope, I know what I'm gonna do. And once I know, I generally move quite confidently in that direction and experience all the fears and resistance and all this stuff. But it's that knowing that gets me through those fears. So,
which, thank you for saying that, because that is really important. That I think, important. Like, because you do get, even if you know what you're doing, you still end up with like this fear, this doubt, like
other people questioning
you, and then you start to be like, well, is that a sign I'm not supposed to be doing this?
Yeah, wait, did I not think this through? Like, yeah.
And for me,
so much can come up.
Yeah, so much can come up. And like for me personally, like when those like outside forces are coming and I start trying to take those as like the universal signs not to do that, I'm like, wait, no, that's society trying to put me back into line because I have now stepped out.
Yep. 1,000%. Beautiful reflection. Yes.
Yeah.
So again, I'll try to like
so you're
condense this.
You gotten done with Spain, like,
yes. And I then had a lot of basically open travel plans where I went back to London, which was like a second home for me at that point. I ended up moving all my stuff that I had there stored at various friends' homes. Kind of funny. I just had stuff at everyone's different apartments. And I gathered up all my stuff, shipped it to my parents, and where were they living at the time? They had moved to Idaho by then.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah, my parents moved to Idaho like 7 years ago. And basically, yeah, I came back to the States for a couple months, and I actually spent a good chunk of time in South Carolina with my cousin, who's like my sister. Oh, that was great. But I remember my dad this whole time was like, "So you're applying to jobs, right?" Like, and I was like, "Sure, I'm applying to jobs. Yeah." Like, and I basically applied to some other international posts to tell my dad, yes, I am being mature and responsible and applying to other jobs. I think it took me a while to actually do that, but the funny thing is, I watched the movie that it was about. Oh, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, WTF.
Oh,
you
yeah.
ever heard that with Tina Fey?
I don't think. I feel like I watched it, but I don't remember watching it.
That's totally okay. It's about, I believe it's about a journalist in Afghanistan.
Okay.
And the kind of international aid world there. And it's so funny. I watched that with my cousin and her boyfriend at the time, now husband. But and I was just like connecting with that world again, that international humanitarian aid world, which is its own culture. And I was just like, oh yeah, I definitely want to go back to that world. I want to be part of that again. But at the end of that movie, I wasn't like, yeah, I want to go to Afghanistan. I had this, it was a download. It was Iraq. Iraq. And I just was like, oh, okay. Like internally, I knew I was going to go to Iraq.
I got chills for that.
Yeah,
this is a past thing.
It was, and it was, and I also, of course, you get a download, and I don't know about you, I get a download, and I'm like, sure, and then I'm like, no, what? I don't know. Well, I'll hold that as a possibility, universe.
But
yeah. So,
and then they're like, no,
yeah, it's no, this is for real.
This is for real.
So I could feel it. I knew. I was just like, whatever that means. I know that I want my next move to be the Middle East, and I just wanted a different culture. I wanted a different experience. Different sounds so weird. I wanted a different conflict. I really did. I just wanted to connect with a different experience, basically, a different culture. And so I started applying to jobs in the Middle East. But I had another kind of knowing and or kind of like feeling like, you know what is probably going to happen? I'm probably going to go to Iraq with this specific organization. It's another Christian organization, but this one is Swiss. So based in Switzerland, but I had a lot of friends who worked with that organization. I knew about it. I knew it was solid. I knew there's a lot of kind of crossover between my organization, the British one that I went to Congo with, and this other one. And I just was like, I just felt pretty confident that, like, first of all, they would accept my application. They also require you to do like a week long training slash, for lack of a better word, exam. It's like basically, I won't get into it, but to be part of their organization, you have to basically participate in a type of security training that takes about a week and is a series of simulations and trainings. So I knew that was coming up. In the meantime, I was applying to like random jobs in the Middle East. I was just like, sure, Dad, I'm applying to jobs. I got no word from any of those. No one was interested. Yeah, I was just like not even an interview.
You didn't care. You were just.
I did not care. I was like, I felt kind of bad. I was like, I know I should get a job. But in the meantime, I was traveling. I was visiting friends. I was having a blast. I was healing. Like meditation camp. That's what I call it, at least. Meditation camp, like, did the real work and set me up to just enjoy and have fun and connect and have like really enriching experiences with friends and family. And yeah, by the time this other organization has these trainings like periodically, like quarterly or something like that, and so by the time one rolled up again, I was like, okay, I'm going to Switzerland, going to this week-long training, and I was accepted into the organization, and then from there you get kind of, you can connect with job offers, and I did 2 interviews. One was to go back to Congo, and one was to go to Iraq. And I got offers to do those interviews in the same week. I did them both. And I was like, I'm holding this open that in case the universe wants me to go back to Congo, I can. But once I got that Iraq interview, I was like,
this is where I'm going.
I was like, and I got an offer for each of those jobs on the same day. And I was like, I'll take the weekend to decide. I knew where I was going, but I was like, let's just give myself a little space.
Which is important. Ask yourself questions. Yep. Make sure that that's really what you want to do.
Yep. But by that Monday, I was just like, Iraq, please, thank you. And so then I went to northern Iraq for 2.5 years, about doing a really similar job, grant writing, doing kind of project management stuff. And it was there, that was a whole other kind of opportunity to expand and explore my own spirituality. So What's interesting is there, obviously, we think of Islamic culture there,
Hmm.
right? I was in northern Iraq. There, it's Kurdistan, which is a semi-autonomous region of Iraq. And there's in the city that I lived in, it was mostly Muslim, but there was a whole Christian neighborhood. Um, so yeah.
Which I would have never thought
Oh
would
yeah,
exist there.
no big deal, no problems. It was fine. And so I remember asking like local um, Kurdish staff, like, oh, when I get there, do I need to be like wearing a headscarf when I land? Like, what needs to happen? And they're like, I remember one of them, Noshtar, he was like, why would you need to wear a headscarf? And I was like, because I'm a woman in Iraq. And he was like, no, but you're Christian, you're fine. I was like, cool.
Oh, but not something you would think about.
You would have no idea because
Yeah.
we hear about um, other countries that it's absolutely the law, right? That
Yeah, no
women,
matter
any
what your
woman,
culture is.
yeah, we think of Saudi Arabia or Iran. You gotta be scarfed on up, right?
Hmm.
But Iraq's a little bit different, and also the Kurdish region that I was in is its own unique place. Um, so I probably wore a headscarf a handful of times maximum in my 2.5 years there. That's going to, particularly traditional or rural areas, and that's going to any sort of like mosque or kind of special ceremony or something like that. Otherwise, no one expected me to be wearing a headscarf.
Yeah.
They respected that I didn't have those beliefs. Not a problem. So, yeah.
That's lovely.
It was. It really was.
Nice when people just accept your beliefs and like
Yeah.
they're just like, we're not gonna try to change it.
No. Well, and there is something I will say. I'm a white American woman.
Hmm.
This is like traveling around to these places. I stick out, definitely experience a lot of interest because I'm different. But that was generally like quite sometimes okay, I definitely experienced harassment in
Hmm.
my throughout my travels. Um, Unwanted sexual attention, things like that. Most of the time what I experienced was a lot of respect and acceptance, like being a foreign woman in culture, especially Islamic cultures, is like a weird third gender space. I feel like
Okay.
because because I'm foreign, like local men are like super interested in talking to me, not necessarily in any sort of
Like I'm gonna get with you
yeah,
way.
no, like in a really like
Like they're just
respectful way.
curious.
Like they're curious, like I'm kind of invited to partake in things because I'm foreign, but I'm also a woman, so I'm also invited into the women's worlds. Foreign men are super invited into kind of cultural male spaces, but don't have access to cultural female spaces. So it's really interesting.
Interesting.
At least that's been my experience and observation. I don't think I'm alone in experiencing that. I feel like I've read other perspectives about that too. But yeah, so there's something special about being um, yeah, a foreigner, a privileged foreigner in those situations, especially with the jobs that I had and kind of the prestige that it came along with them.
Hmm.
So I had a really unique access point, and I got to work with just some absolutely fantastic local people who um, spoke English so beautifully, so it was so easy to connect, and then also were so open to me and willing to share their cultures and their families and inviting me to things. And it was just really cool. So um, yeah, it was. I think yeah, that my spiritual expansion continued though in that place. Like I think partially because I had a lot of stress and I didn't want to get totally burnt out like I did in Congo. So it was like learning more self care, especially after that meditation experience. That was helpful. Um,
Well, learning to recognize the
mm-hmm,
burnout,
mm-hmm.
which is really important. Most people don't
Oh
recognize
my
their
gosh,
burnout. They
yeah,
just until they're burnt out.
yeah, because we
And
aren't taught to be sensitive to ourselves.
no, and then they continue to go through their burnout till someone looks at you and says,
Like
"Hey."
you're not okay.
You're not okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, and in Congo I had people tell me that, like, we think you're not okay. And I'm like, I'm fine.
So everything is fine. It's all burning down, but it's good.
Like, what are you talking about? I sleep 8 hours a night and meditate an hour a day. Like, I'm fine. And they're like, you're barely making it. I'm like, but I have such great coping skills. And they're like, that's why you're surviving.
That's why you're surviving, but you're not surviving.
Yeah.
You're not
Definitely not
going
thriving.
to survive.
Yes. Not
Anyways.
sustainable. So yeah, I took those lessons, applied them to Iraq, and actually it was only 6 months into Iraq that I was like, oh, this is my last grant writing job. This is my last job doing this type of work. It's time for me to become a counselor. Because I had been thinking about that for about a decade. So mental health had been, I worked at that psychiatric hospital when I was like 21, 22. My degree in London was war and psychiatry. It was mental health and wellness um, focused. So I always kind of knew I wanted to weave mental health back in there, but it was in Iraq that I was like, okay, this type of job, like I love working internationally, all these things. I love working in these settings, but I don't love exactly how I'm working. Like it's not sustainable for me. So I actually started doing my master's degree for my clinical mental health counseling degree remotely while I was in Iraq.
Really?
And so, yeah, it actually was great. I did like one class at a time. Like I didn't overload myself, and it was great. It was great. And like while I was there, because I was surrounded by a lot of Christians, actually international Christians, because I was working for an international Christian organization, faith-based organization. There were actually some churches, some international churches that some of my friends and coworkers went to that I did not like. There was one that was called like the International American Church. It was Southern Baptist, which is fine, but it was not international. Like it was no, it was women weren't allowed to preach, like very fundamental. And I was like, bless you all, but I cannot attend. Like it just was so out of alignment with me. And there were other people that I was working with who felt the same way. So we actually had our own little church service that we created that was like in my living room every
Nice.
Saturday morning. It was delightful. We called it Junk Church. It was from a typo that happened in a text message, and we were like, actually, that fits. We're like the junk. We're just like not working in any of these other churches that we have access to. Like, let's just create our own. And I was expanding more and more in that time, recognizing more and more that there's very little of the structure and um, kind of worldview of Christianity that fits with my kind of experience and my spirituality, except that I believe in a loving creator who imbues his creation, its, their, God's, creator's creation
The extension of
with
themselves.
love. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's how I view the Christ concept as well, of like, this is just love incarnate. Like that's what that is. And so it's just a continuation of my journey of being like, this doesn't fit, this doesn't fit, this doesn't fit. But there's this core that I feel that's basically a universal spiritual experience of divine love connecting me to everything that is and everything that ever will be. And um, as I moved back to the States to complete my counseling degree, I actually created, it was great. I created basically up to a year, I gave myself to road trip around the US to date America, as a friend of mine called it, get reacquainted with this beautiful country as an adult and figure out where I wanted to live and where I wanted to get licensed as a counselor. And through all that, nowhere felt better to me than Boise, Idaho.
Interesting.
Which
okay.
I wouldn't have gotten exposure to except that my parents moved here
Yeah.
like a few years before I came back. And during this time, I think my brother really helped. And before I moved back to the States too, he's very spiritually expansive. He's and has been for like 20 years. Um, he started kind of like sending me things and being like, "What do you think about this? What do you think about this?" One of my first experience and connection with channeled work
Mm-hmm.
was through Paul Selig. Do you know Paul Selig?
I don't.
Wonderful dude. Um, he channels his guide. He just refers to them as the guides,
Mm-hmm.
and he's channeled many books that still impact me. Oh my gosh, I haven't read all of them. There's many, but that was the first kind of leap I took into that, was reading one of his books, because I trust my brother. My brother is awesome, and he was just like, I really think you'll resonate with this, and I really did, really, really did. Highly recommend Paul Selig. That started expanding me more and more. I was like, wait, if this is real and this makes sense to me, what else makes sense to me? And it was this process. I remember this process of encountering more channeled work like that. Also, Lee Harris,
Uh, mm-hmm.
he's a dear. Um, lots of love coming through that man. I feel like and various other kind of intuitives and spiritual teachers that my brother particularly helped source me with. But different books I was reading, I started to let go and let go and let go of more and more programming, like during this road trip, as I was kind of refining myself, um, and figuring out where I wanted to be. It was also a process of like settling into like, well, what is my spiritual experience? How am I viewing this life? And I remember the moment I was just like, oh, I let go of hell. I was actually a scary moment to let go of hell. I was like, no, I've held this so loosely for so long, and now I'm like, nah,
Nah.
nah, brah. Besides the hell that we create,
Yeah, at the in our own
our
minds.
own belief in separation.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it, and all the terrible ramifications that can have. But for me,
But the
that's
physical
about it.
place that you
Of
go
you either go
to,
here or here.
yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm
It's
done.
such a breath when you get to be
It's
like,
that.
oh, okay, so the only hell that really exists is the one in my own brain.
That
And I
I
can do
create.
something about that.
Yes, absolutely. And so that was a huge little step. Um, and just I think just over the past few years, it's just been this unraveling. It was all very gradual for me, my kind of spiritual growth and expansion process. And over the past few years, it's just been this beautiful unfolding and unraveling of pulling out little threads that I'm like, wait, I still believe that? Not really. No, that doesn't make sense. But ooh, this resonates and this
Mm-hmm.
resonates. Oh, this I'm experiencing. This I feel like that experiential
Mm-hmm.
growth and development. And I think like just retreats I've been able to go on and different spiritual teachers I've been able to experience and all that. How the heck am I doing readings and energy healing now? So just to, just to wrap all that, just swoop all that up,
Yeah.
because there's so many different portals we could get into with that as well. But last fall, this is all very recent. Last fall, I got introduced to a wonderful Akashic Records reader,
Mm-hmm.
Denise. Wonderful. She's great. She's actually based in Boise. Um, and she did a reading for me, and it was so profound and powerful, and I felt the truth of it. I also at that time was connected to the concept of theta healing, which
Okay.
is, yeah, I could talk about another
Theta's
time.
huge.
There's lots of different types of theta healing, like theta
Yeah.
as the brainwave. It's like a hypnotic state and all this. So theta healing is a specific teaching um, that I got trained in and all these things. And that was really cool. I was like, whoa, that was me starting to really start to own that, like, wait, there's spiritual gifts in all of us and I have them too. And part of that process was actually getting a very beautiful energy session by a wonderful energy healer whose office is in that building. It's great. It's a
I
little
do. I
preview.
remember you telling me about
Yes,
that.
she helps me identify like my I had a block towards accepting what I viewed as magic, which is spiritual gifts and spiritual connection to the spiritual realm, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And she helped me sort through that. We worked through that. She helped me heal through that. And really, after that, things really started opening up. I started believing in my own ability to access these things that I saw as special. Like, I might have looked at you at the time and been like, oh, she can do stuff like readings, but I can't, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm so thankful that I moved past that.
Well, coming from that Christian background
Mm-hmm.
where they're very much like it's the chosen
Yes.
who get to do that,
Yeah.
and depending on, so I can understand where
Absolutely.
you're.
Yeah. And always wanting to have a connection to what I viewed as magic
Yeah.
and like spiritual magic. Um, I could go on a whole tangent about that. But so it was only in, so I started experiencing these Akashic readings and getting training in theta healing, which is super cool and informative and mind blowing. Um, and around that time, I also decided to open my private practice as a therapist um, and leave the agency I was working with. So there's a lot of expansion going around,
Mm-hmm.
like this time last year. Um, and it was only this past February that I had another Akashic reading with this wonderful reader. Um, and by the end of it, she showed me, she just picked up this book, this Akashic Records reading manual, basically, and was just like, this is what I'm getting for you. Get this book, start practicing on yourself, start practicing on your friends, and see what happens. And I started doing that, and it felt like a duck to water. I was like, like theta
Such a
healing.
great
Just like, shaking it
yeah,
all
well,
off,
I
just
mean,
like
it's such a good
swimming in the
analogy.
pond.
It's just natural.
It felt so natural, and I love theta healing too. It's just taking more practice for me. And
Mm-hmm.
when I get into it, and get into my confidence with it, it flows. But it's like intimidating to me, I think. Whereas Akashic readings, I'm just like, oh, I just do whatever I can do. I just connect and I see what happens. It's like it's an easier mode for me to play in.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I think I get more feedback from people immediately, like immediate feedback, like kind of like in tarot or oracle readings,
Yeah.
like, is this actually resonating with you? Do you feel this? Does this make sense? And that helps, that like connecting with that helps build confidence in what I'm receiving, and then I can grow in my own confidence and in my own spiritual gifts and senses, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went from just wanting to become, a mental health counselor to, oh, I do counseling, and oh my gosh, I find there's such need for merging the psychological and the spiritual and bringing all these
100%.
things together. Yeah.
100%.
And I love it. And so I love that I have some counseling clients who we also do Akashic readings, we do theta healing, and then I have people who come in just for Akashic readings um and I weave in theta healing to some of these things as well. And it's just it's just been really cool to watch it all unfold quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But also I've been so excited and willing and jumping in. So like we met at the Ethereal Arts Bazaar.
In October, beginning of October.
Shut up.
I know, because it
Oh
feels,
my gosh, yeah.
it was
Because we
because,
were only set up next to each other twice
yeah, it was supposed to be
before.
that
Yeah.
Renaissance
Yes.
fair, but it feels like I've
Yes.
known you for
I
so
know.
long.
I know.
And then getting to do this is
This
like
is so cool. It's just like deep dive.
deeping. Yeah, it's like,
Let's get to know each other for
yeah,
real, because
yeah.
this is great. So I started doing that in May,
Mm-hmm.
monthly in May, just setting up a little booth and my little Akashic readings booth at this monthly vendor fair, and where it's such a cool place to do that because there are tarot readers, there are palm readers, there's Look, there's other types of readers. There's so many
Well,
different
there's
types of readers.
Reiki
There's
reader, there's
Reiki, yeah.
sound baths, like
It's such a perfect place to play in that realm.
mhm.
And people
Me
are going there to have that experience. So it's just a really cool place to practice and play. So.
well, and I think there's one thing if anyone's starting to get into the realm of working in this, I think like the most valuable lesson I ever learned as a reader was that doing readings on other people, because you don't know their life. Like doing readings on myself, I can choose to ignore something because it's too prickly and I don't like it.
Absolutely.
Or just be like, oh, that's not it. Or with my friends, I'm just like, well, I just really know them and I know what they're going through. But when you can tell someone, hey, you are watching too much true crime and you need to find a new show, and they're like,
so true. Oh my God.
And they're like, oh, I not only listen to it or watch it, but it's the only podcast I listen to. And you're just like, I didn't even know you before this moment. And
that's when we start to learn to trust ourselves
more and gain that confidence.
Because I know that I really resonate with what you're saying. I can get things for myself. I can get things for my friends, but there's that doubt. I'm like, is this just because I'm insightful? Which is great. That's a wonderful skill.
Yeah, it's an amazing skill.
But or am I just projecting? Like, am I just making assumptions because I know them and this is just my opinion coming through? There's all sorts of self-doubt. But when you connect with people you don't know as well, it's like, and things flow and you get those little moments of like this, I don't know why I'm gonna say this to you, but I'm gonna say this to you and let's see if it lands. And then it lands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I would never actually say it like this, so I apologize in advance.
Yeah.
But this is how I have to say it.
Yeah. I even one time with this person who I didn't know at all, she'd been recommended to me by a friend. I was like, I can't not say this word that keeps resounding in my head, pancreas.
Yeah.
And I was like, does pancreas mean anything to you? And she goes, I have type 1 diabetes and my pancreas doesn't work. And so from there, I was like, okay. So from there, I could be like, thank you. So I have another friend who does all sorts of readings and channeling and stuff. And she says, sometimes that stuff is coming through to show you that you're on the right track, to build confidence in both the person experiencing the reading and the reader. Like, we need to, like, spirit knows we need to build that confidence.
Yeah.
We need those little signposts and those moments of, oh, that's what it feels like, or that's what it sounds like, or that's what I see when it's coming from that higher place and not just a fabrication of the mind or whatever.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's really special.
Absolutely. It's so special. Yeah, I've had incidents. I'm like, what is your deal with mushrooms?
Yeah. What is it? Yeah.
Like, why is this like so? Well, I'm allergic to them, but I did mushrooms and I was just like, oh, and I was thinking about doing them again. This is a hard no.
Yeah. Don't do it. Yeah.
Don't do it. I am being told as soon as you said that, it was like the clear answer. Because
I love that because sometimes it is that practical.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we go to readers. I know myself. Like we go to readers and it's like, I want this like mystical experience and all this, and it is, but it's often very practical and mundane. Like,
well, and we have
a mixture.
And I think one thing that is kind of a disservice to ourselves is we have these expectations from TV shows and movies and people that have been around a lot. Recently someone was like the real deal. They were the real deal, and I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, they're like the things they told me, and I was just like, I've done readings with you, and like you weren't accepting of what I was saying. So like, what makes someone a real deal to you? Because it took me a while to get you just to like the way that I was saying something to get you to even hear the message, and you were like, oh. So I'm like, what do you like? That's really interesting. Yeah, it's been a concept of anyways. It's been a concept I've been thinking about lately. Like, okay. Because people do come to readings for that. Yeah. But there is that like need of acceptance of what you're
Yes.
hearing,
And
and to not have
readiness.
such high expectations that you're going to speak to your dead relative, or
Absolutely.
they may come through, they may not. Like, or
I really resonate with what you're saying because sometimes when I'm looking for a spiritual experience, what I'm looking for is something so magical and something to prove to me, like, or give me such amazing guidance that it makes me feel totally fine and fixes everything in my life. Like, but the reality is, we kind of perceive what we're ready for.
and that's another part, is like, I sometimes get messages, I'm told I'm not supposed to tell you because you're not ready.
Yeah, and it won't.
And
It
it
it,
won't
it might
land right, and
it
it's
may
because it
land
won't,
wrong. Yeah,
yeah, it won't land in the way, and he'll ignore it, so they're
yeah.
saving
I love
it.
that.
But anyways, but yeah, I can see for you how counseling,
Mhm.
and I guess even just sitting here listening to all your stuff, it just kind of really kind of struck me that, like, counselors are energy workers, like,
Yeah,
in
they
a
are.
way, like, without even
Absolutely.
ever thinking about, like, I never made
Mhm.
the two connections,
Yeah.
because, like, those two things really do go in hand, because even when I do readings, there's some people like, I've been
Mhm.
going to therapy for years, and what you just
Mhm.
told me was clearer than any therapy session. And so it's like
Yes,
they're
absolutely.
it's they're hand in hand.
Yeah, and using, I think, whether however you're using your intuitive and spiritual gifts, um, it can be, it it's such a, it's like we have to be so willing to let that move through. And I think
Mm-hmm.
as a in my counseling practice, it's like it's so important for me to be connected to my spirituality and that to my intuition and the ways that I receive guidance, because and actually like letting that come through and not be so focused on what I think needs to happen in the session.
Yeah.
I think this applies to counselors and any other type of healer. Like, um, because if I get too caught up in what I think should happen or how I think the healing should occur or where I think the session should go, it messes with the magic of it. And when I come back, like when I catch myself in that, I'm like, oh, okay. And I have my little process of returning to my heart and kind of coming at it from my higher self. And when I'm resting in that place, things just flow.
Yeah.
It's not work. I don't have to figure anything out. The right questions come, the insights come at the right time. It's amazing.
So
And
beautiful.
yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. And I love the life that I've created for myself. And I'm so thankful for my winding, weaving journey.
Because they all are.
Yes, they all are. And I love mine.
Yeah.
So thank you for being a part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you for being a part of mine. I
Yeah,
love those.
so fun.
Yeah. I know we can continue to sit here and talk and talk and talk, but
And
and talk. And we will
next time
next time.
on Reader to Reader.